What's good, everybody? Welcome to another exciting episode of Full Circle. I'm your host, as always, Harmon Jr. Please feel free to find me at Harmon Jr. on all your favorite social media. So this is a very special episode. For those listening at our usual time on Wednesday at noon, we're actually live streaming this episode right now. Jack, where can they find that at? Just so if they want to watch that for later.
If you want to watch it later, you can find it over on twitch.tv/riverboatjack, which is where I stream all of my content.
Yay. And for those listening at your regular schedule time, we have another fabulous show planned for you today. But before we get into that, I want to let my very special guest introduce herself today. Her name is Jack, and if you don't know her, Jack, go ahead and tell people, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I mean, to hit the usual pun, I'm a jack of all trades. Like I tend to do a little bit of everything. I've been consulting on games on the back end. I've worked directly on games. And I worked as like a game journalist for like 10 years. Predominantly with Extra Life, though I've done some freelancing gigs for like Fanbyte and Game Informer and stuff like that. So I've bounced around podcasting a fair bit too, and now I have a little home over on Twitch. So, yeah.
Game journalist is a very jack of all trades type of phrase nowadays anyway, because I feel like, though, as time has went on, games journalists, quote unquote, have wrote less and less in the traditional sense of writing. You have to write scripts for videos and things of that nature. But, it's weird because, it's just very, to a certain degree, people on Twitch could be considered a game journalist, I feel like, depending on how deep and how intensive they are in their craft. But, ever evolving terms, that's just how life works. Things change over time.
For sure. There's definitely a writing component to all of it still. Like, I don't know, like, are we allowed to cuss?
We try to keep it PG, for kiddos out there.
But Imran Khan wrote a really awesome piece in Fanbyte, I think today, that went up, basically saying that the developers of 6 Days in Fallujah think you're all effing idiots. It was a really good piece, just about like how kind of like the corporate world of like gaming meets like the gaming audience. I thought it was really interesting anyway.
Oh, yeah,
so there's definitely still a space for writing,
Oh yeah, no, that most definitely, it will never go away, because like you said, most things that we do, it's first written, video content. Even my podcast, I have to write things down, because then I'll forget where I'm going and I'm all over the place. And plus, writing is a skill that never goes out of style, people. You master writing, you master life. Pen greater than the sword and all that good stuff.
Well, yeah, honestly, like a lot of people are like, you're getting an English degree. I'm like, hey, that's taken me places. That's opened so many doors for me. You know who doesn't know how to write? People in business. People in business do not know how to write. That's why they need marketing teams, people. Just saying. Y'all would be lost without us.
This is true. And when you don't know how to write, I don't know if y'all saw Burger King's tweet today, but I'm just gonna leave it at that. If you have not seen Burger King's International Women's Day tweet, it's a must read of how writing is important, words matter, and even with the best intentions, which I will give that person the benefit of the doubt, I would assume it had good intentions. It could just be bad. That's it. That's all we're saying, because we have a gaming show today, and today we're going to be talking about some great topics as always. We're going to be talking about women. It's International Women's Day. So we're going to be talking about our favorite creators, both real and fictional, because gaming wouldn't be anywhere today without women, because they're bosses like that. You know what I'm saying? But before that, we're going to talk about Google Stadia. It's failing. It hasn't failed yet, but it is definitely failing, and it's failing in spectacular fashion. If you're going to fail, do it big. Maybe not Cyberpunk 2077 bad, but we're getting there. I like Cyberpunk 2077. For the record, I've beat that game through 2 playthroughs. So, it's got its problems, but I've enjoyed it. So, I'm not crapping on it.
It is a fine game. And just like Stadia was a a fine streaming console.
You know what? I'm gonna knock it down and peg and say it was a fine idea. Well, we'll get to that. But before all that, we gotta talk Nintendo Switch. Okay, people, I know we've been a lot Nintendo heavy. Pokemon month ended, and then we had to recap with the Pokemon Direct and the Switch Direct. And literally, the day the podcast airs, Bloomberg drops the ball, and supposedly Nintendo hasn't confirmed, but this seems pretty legit at this point. We are getting Switch Pro, Switch 2, Super Nintendo Switch. I want it to be called Super Nintendo Switch. That makes the most sense.
Oh, yes,
do it, Nintendo.
Please, the nostalgia bump alone would be amazing.
It will be amazing. So basically, we're getting a new Switch. Supposedly this year too. That's the big kicker. Not 2022, 23, 24, 25. But Jack, real quick, before we get into the boring details of it, how'd you take this news?
I'm super stoked. Like, I honestly, out of like all of the consoles, like the one that I'm most invested in is a Switch. And if a Super Switch comes out that can play like some fancy new games, that has a better screen, that has all the new bells and whistles, but it can still play my old games, I will be happy as a clam. Like, just like I'm excited. Like, the Switch is such a cool little device, and there's nothing really else like it, and it does gaming very well. Like, I think Nintendo's done a really good job of getting like all of the developers it needs to make that system stand out.
Most definitely. And I was talking to one of my friends, and I was like, the Switch is now running Apex Legends. They put Doom on it, and it's honestly not. I won't say good enough to run most of those games, those third-party games they're adding now, but it is doing it. And I'm like, if the Switch is currently under, let's be real, underpowered hardware running these super powerful games, I can only imagine what I'm just calling now Super Nintendo Switch can do, because according to Bloomberg, it will have a 4K display. It originally reported made by Sony, but they've updated it to say it's going to be a Samsung OLED display. Because I was like, well, if Sony's making it, I guess that's what, PS4 quality? But I digress. It's Samsung. So
but a 4K screen in your hands, I can't like wrap my head around that.
I can't either. And supposedly docked will get 4K 60 frames per second, the buzzwords. But in my mind, honestly, if it's on par or slightly better than PS4, Xbox One level graphics, game over in my mind. Game over.
Yeah,
that's it.
Absolutely. Like, being able to carry around your a PS4 level game in your hands and just like have it work and be amazing and have that same Switch experience, like how it just so seamlessly goes between like main menu and play. Like, I absolutely game over. Like, check and mate, my friend.
Check and mate. So I'm one of those weird people that plays my Switch mainly docked. I say I'm probably about 80-20, because just gaming for me is mostly like a TV experience. But there's those magical moments where it's like, oh, someone's watching TV, I'm gonna keep gaming. Or so definitely in my hand. But I feel like if we're going 4K in my hand, that may become more 50-50. And some of the things I'm mostly excited about, for example, they just showed off the new Pokemon game, the third person one, Legends of Arceus. Arceus, sorry people. They also showed off Splatoon 3, and I remember thinking, these games look bad. I love you, Nintendo, but I gotta be that guy now. We need to step up. We're looking damn near PS2 level graphically. I'm like, that don't make sense. But now I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Splatoon 3, new Pokemon game, and whatever else Nintendo's playing, people, 4K Mario, Zelda, it's game over. Like, and every third-party game is on the Switch now.
But also, can you imagine if they have some way of like upscaling older games to that like resolution? Like, if they have some way of like just like you get that instantly upscales, like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild instantly upscales like the Mario games, Mario Odyssey. Like, it would basically make their entire catalog like brand new again.
I got so excited I knocked my headphone cord out. But I heard you. I'm about to get real conspiracy theory here. Completely conspiracy theory. This is not coming from my gut. It's not coming from years of journalistic integrity. Just conspiracy theory.
Yep.
So the reason why Super Mario All-Stars was timed and all those games were timed and people were like, why is Nintendo pulling these games for limits? Because this was coming. They were like, we're just giving to y'all because y'all won't shut up. But we're giving you ports and not remasters because we're coming with this 4K Switch. This is to shut y'all up, to be happy. The reason why we didn't get that Zelda port, because we're getting 4K Zelda, people. We're getting Twilight Princess 4K edition, the best Zelda ever made. I'll say that right now.
Whoa.
It's better than Ocarina of Time.
Whoa.
Okay, no, because people keep telling me, Twilight Princess is just Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time is just Link to the Past. Every Zelda is just the previous Zelda. That is not a valid excuse. I digress.
And we're also getting Wind Waker, which I'm excited about because I never had a Wii U, so I never got to play that remaster, and it's still not on Switch.
It's so good. It's so good. Like every qualm that Wind Waker people have with Wind Waker, which were very few to begin with, they fixed. And honestly, when people ask me what's my favorite Zelda, it's usually Wind Waker or Twilight Princess. They flip flop for number one consistently because I don't know which one. I will say this. Twilight Princess is the best traditional dungeon style Zelda. If you're talking about like the formula, then I put that at the top. But you have Wind Waker and you have like Majora's Mask and you have like Skyward Sword that break that. And then I feel that's a whole separate conversation. But if we're talking about typical get item, go to dungeon, get item, go to dungeon, get item, go to dungeon, that's Twilight Princess all day, every day for me.
Yep. I'll agree with that.
So, all right. So I'm only saying this because we're getting Apex Legends, which I thought the Switch could never run, but it can, and apparently it's going to run it better later this year. Fingers crossed. What happens when we get the Call of Duties of the world on Switch? Is that just going to decimate the market?
I honestly don't know. I don't know if like there is as much of a demand or like from like Switch gamers for Call of Duty on Switch. Maybe? I'm not sure.
It's weird because, so again, conspiracy theory. Nintendo was like, we just gotta get Switch in people's hands. Like when Animal Crossing came out in the pandemic, people thought the Switch had just came out. I met people who thought the Switch was like a new thing, and that's why everybody was getting it. And the cool thing is to get Animal Crossing. Again, maybe this was part of their plan. They're like, we're gonna get everyone's Switch in their hand, introduce this. I don't know. I'm just excited.
Me too. So, it's actually been a while since I've been like excited about new hardware. I didn't get that excited about like the PS5 and the Xbox One X or whatever it's called now. I didn't get that excited about them. And like I'm a video game person, but I'm excited about the Super Nintendo Switch.
I mean, I'm sorry to say this, Jack, but the word teraflops just doesn't get you going.
No, it doesn't. I need something I can hold in my hands.
There you go. But yeah, people, in case we're gonna get a 7-inch screen, or is it 7-inch? We're getting a bigger screen. They're getting rid of the bezel. It's gonna be a big screen. It's gonna have the 4Ks. It's gonna have OLED, which I don't know. They tell me it's good. I recently bought a new TV, and I was like, I'm supposed to get an OLED TV, and it was like, cool, $2,000, please. And I was like, no, thank you.
I want to know what the battery life of this thing is going to be. Like 4K must eat through battery. I wonder if there's like a battery mode that like downgrades it or something.
I imagine it has to be. If I'm being realistic here, I say it couldn't be anything greater than 4 hours, and 4 hours might be pushing it even there.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's probably going to be something realistically close to 2 to 3 hours. And I know it's going to upset a lot of people, but then, like I said, you're probably going to have a battery mode that, like, downgrades it to your 4 to 5 mark.
I do wonder, though, maybe there's something, because Samsung also manufactures, like, smartphones. Mm-hmm. Maybe they have, like, the technology, the technological wizardry to, like, make it a longer-lasting screen.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Maybe it'll be like, because the new hot button thing for games is, do you want performance mode or I don't know, what's the other one, performance or 4K mode? Basically, gives you two modes, and the Switch will probably have like, hey, if you put it in one mode versus the other, it's gonna eat through your battery. But I'm gonna be real. Most times when I rarely play my Switch on the go, so I feel like either A, I'll be at home, and I can just dock it, get it back in my hand, and plug it up to the charger. Or, I mean, battery packs exist, and I'm pretty sure
Sure.
someone's gonna capitalize with the Switch case battery pack dongle nonsense. But I mean, up until Nintendo gives us any information, it's all speculation. But I'm excited. It's here. I'm calling it confirmed because I feel like if it wasn't, Nintendo would have probably said something by now at this point.
Honestly, like, what a great move to, like, if it is coming out this year, what a great move to put it out this year after all the hype for the two new consoles has kind of died down, you know?
Oh yeah, most definitely. And you know where they'll win if it releases and people are still struggling to get a PS5 and an Xbox Series X or S.
Yep.
It may come in and just okay. It will print money regardless. I mean, let's be real. But imagine being a consumer and like I want to play next gen games and I still don't have a PS5, but the Switch is readily available.
Mm-hmm.
You could get a lot of third party support that way. Being like people are like, "Yo, we gotta put games on Switch only because by the numbers, more people have a Switch than a PS5 or Xbox."
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that might be the play. That might be the play where you know, like, oh, you still can't get a PS5, can't get your new Xbox. Well, Call of Duty, just we have a nice handy package with the new Call of Duty and the Super Nintendo Switch. You know?
Oh man, you know what? We gotta drop this topic because we gotta talk about other stuff. But imagine if they release Super Nintendo Switch and like 6 different colors, a la 64 style.
Ooh, I like that so much. Like go back to like classic 90s where you have like see-through crystal.
Yes.
Oh, that'd be dope.
What is it? I think it's
dope.
atomic purple.
Yeah. I miss those color schemes so much.
Oh man. It's weird because I'm just like it to me, Nintendo has forever not did this step, and just doing this step will just destroy the industry in all the best possible ways.
Yeah.
But you know who could really learn from Nintendo strategy? Google Stadia. Yeah, shameless transition, people. I don't care. So Google Stadia, if you haven't heard the news, Google shut down their Google Stadia game studio, which was the studio going to be responsible for creating, all their original titles and works and whatnot for the future. And that's pretty much dead in the water before it truly got started. And no, this doesn't mean Google Stadia is going away, but any long-term plans Google have for Stadia, we can pretty much comfortably say those no longer exist.
Yeah, it almost feels like it was like a test run for something else that they might be working on in another part of the company, like some other streaming initiative.
Yeah, maybe.
Like Google's a huge company, right? Like it might have been testing tech for like something else.
Yeah, I mean, Google and Amazon are unique in the sense they have enough money to fail, which I feel like most companies cannot say that.
Well, yeah, and that's why I think a lot of people thought Stadia was going to be such a success that, like, Google can just keep pouring money into it until it succeeds.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, Amazon had their game studio and they were going to pull out that Hero Fighter, and they just pulled the plug on that too. And before this, I don't know if you remember, Jack, this was circa E3 2014, 15, maybe 12, 13, I don't know. But Google Glass was supposed to be the next biggest thing in gaming, if you remember that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like, oh, you're going to be able to play Minecraft with holograms. It's going to be so cool. Like, I think I know one person who ever actually interacted with that and was like, yeah, it was pretty cool. And then we just never heard about it again.
I remember seeing, was it Halo 5? 4? There was a Halo game that Google Glass was integrating with. And I remember I went to the E3 tech demo of it, and remember thinking, whoa, that was amazing. I'm just going to say Halo 4, 5, 1. I don't know. It was a Halo game, Google Glass and Halo. And they were like, yeah, this may not actually come through. But I remember thinking, on paper, it seemed like a game changer, and it seemed to work. I remember thinking, I don't know how it's going to work with everything, but it seems to work. That's half the battle.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, Jack, do you think that these game companies, Google, Amazon, should just, well, not these companies should leave the gaming to game companies? Like,
I mean, I'm not super comfortable with like this weird dystopian world where like Amazon, like three companies like control like all of our streaming services. So like I think it's good that we have like a lot of different like game companies and stuff like that. I just think it's weird to me that they backed off at all, you know? Like you pointed out, they can dump money into this. Like it's weird that they dumped so much. Like they bought up like different studios and like they're closing them down now and like it's weird. Um it, though it does come like I think Amazon announced late last year that they were getting into like cloud game streaming too. So maybe it was like they just didn't want to mess with it. Like if Amazon's also messing with it, it's going to be too much of a hassle. I don't know.
and and one thing I was thinking about right now as you're explaining that is, about the companies and their backing off. Is it that they're just trying to ride the wave of gaming and they're just hiring people who don't understand gaming like in entirety as a whole? Because I mean, Microsoft came in and succeeded. It took them a while, but
Mm-hmm.
they found their footing. But I also think they cared. Like there was someone at at Microsoft and then Xbox and everything that led to that I think genuinely cared and wanted Xbox to succeed, like
Well,
excluding money.
I feel like Google was doing a pretty good job of like poaching talent from the game industry, right? Like there were a bunch of pretty big high profile people who went to go work for Stadia. And so it is kind of weird to me that like it just like quietly died, you know, like like just one day it was just like, okay, it's gone now, bye.
The thing that always surprised me when it released, it basically released with like almost decade old games, and I was like, I don't understand the strategy here.
Right, like if we're gonna look at like a service that seems like it's doing this kind of the right way, I would look at like Apple Arcade. I personally don't own any Apple products, so I can't play any of the Apple Arcade games, which is infuriating to me because a lot of them look really good, but it seems like that's a program that's here to stay, and like Apple is just in it for the long haul. They want to make Apple devices your like entertainment center. So I think maybe Apple might like keep going at a good clip here. We'll have to see.
I completely agree with that because, I used to be that guy. Mobile gamers aren't gamers. I can admit it. But mobile games have also evolved. And a lot of games on Apple Arcade, when they announced it, were like basically what I would consider games that could only run on console. Like, I feel like every Supergiant game at this point is on Apple Arcade.
Mhm.
And you have things like, they basically have, I'm going to call them arcade directs of like, they're like, hey, check out all these cool games. And I look at them and I'm just like, wow, this is really good. And then you have things like Genshin Impact, which supposedly most people play on their phone. I'm just like, wow, that's considerable.
Yeah,
I,
like I don't even I wouldn't even classify the games on Apple Arcade as like mobile games anymore. Like so many of them are like they're just games. Like um I I need to be careful which like names I pick out of a hat because I get like their library confused with like what Stadia had. So
oh
but
man.
I don't know. I'm impressed by it and I could it's not inconceivable to me as weirdly distasteful a lot of people might find it. It's not inconceivable to me that Apple might in the future launch like a console of their own.
I don't know. It's weird. I both like that and hate that idea.
Yeah, same. That's where
Because
I'm at. That's where I'm at.
because I'm not saying Apple products are bad. I have an iPhone like the rest of the world. I'm team PC, won't lie, just because Apple, you make it hard. Like this streaming and podcast and everything I'll be doing. If this was on a Mac, it would blow up because it don't play nice with certain things. I digress. But it's weird because I've never been a fan of Apple's overall infrastructure, and I feel like an Apple gaming system would inevitably just annoy me to no end. They will find a way to Apple it up,
Oh, for sure.
and it'll be like, okay,
can.
I gotta log in with my Apple ID to play this game, and
Mhm.
I'm out.
I don't know. The reason I bring this up is just because Apple Arcade kind of shows that they're willing to build up like essentially like a first party exclusives for their console, for their game service. And I can see that evolving into like a piece of hardware down the line at some point.
You know, many have tried to enter this market, especially with the cloud-based thing. And honestly, if xCloud ends up being amazing, especially with Game Pass, I feel like it'll kill the market. Like it'll be too good to where entering will almost be next to impossible, kind of like competing with Amazon as a shipping service.
Mm-hmm.
But if anyone is to do it right and be there for the long haul and then ultimately succeed, Apple would probably be the one to do it. And to your credit, like you said, they've slowly but surely have been building this infrastructure to the point it crept up on us. Like you said, Apple Arcade seamlessly came out of nowhere, and it seamlessly was just good. And, you know, without fanfare, it was just like, hey, here's this thing. And then, you know, when something grows organically like that, when people are just like, hey, this is good, use it, you know, you have more success than in, you know, the hot button. It's the newest thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, also, shout out to Jack's followers. Like, I can't see the chat. I don't know if y'all saying things to me, but what's up, y'all? Y'all cool. I like y'all.
They are very cool.
And oh, I forgot about the newest news. How do you feel about the fact that because of Xbox new web browser coming out, you can play Google Stadia on that? Like, I just find that it's just one of those funny things. Like, I don't think they're even gonna stop it from like being a thing.
I mean, at this point, why even bother, right? Like, I don't know why they would care all that much about stopping like Google Stadia like streaming. It doesn't seem worth the effort. Like, stop, it's already dead. You know, like just let it be. You know, most people are gonna want to use the built-in systems that are more convenient. You know.
Yeah. You think would ever get to the point where game consoles are only game consoles by nostalgia purposes and they're just basically a box that streams games?
I mean, we're already almost there, right? Like, isn't that what the digital only versions of like next gen consoles are right now? Like,
I guess in theory, because you're still downloading the
yeah,
game.
you're still downloading it, but like it's only like a small step away.
You know, I really don't know how I feel about that. Just at one point, I have a Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox controller, and then that's basically the console because this is like the key that lets me.
Yeah.
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know if I'm getting old. Are we both getting old? I don't like that. Do I not like that because am I scared of new technology?
I'm scared of what it means for like ownership of things, because like one of the main contentions within like gaming over like the last, I don't know, decade or so has been like, do you own your games, right? And like game companies are like, no, you don't own your games, but you do own the game disc. But it gets weirdly complicated, and I think once we hit a point where everything's all digital all the time, I think that's bad for just like preserving history, you know, like preserving history, like having tangible things that we own, and instead we're just like, I don't know.
I mean,
I
I
like
agree.
there's something about being able to hold a thing that you own that digital can't really replace.
Yeah, it's just I'm not the biggest book reader. I'm not the person that puts my I'm about to read 30 books this year list at the top of the year. I'm like, if I make it through 2, it was a good year. I'm that guy.
Yeah.
But I fundamentally don't like Kindles just because I feel it's an odd experience for me to try to, not to sound poetic, but is it a book if I can't feel the ink on the paper?
Yeah. No, I totally get it. There is something about like the physical experience of knowing that something is present for you. And like Kindles are like undeniably way more convenient. You can have like 1,000 books in your hand, right? Like,
Yeah.
but there is something to like the physical sensations of like turning pages or like putting a disc in a cart in a disc thing. My brain is blanking.
No, I get you, like, because people think it's weird when it's gaming because it's a digital thing, but I think there's something like holding a Game Boy and clicking your game in. There's some weird sensation that goes on. And I mean, look, you can go to eBay right now and look up a physical unopened copy of Final Fantasy VII, and it's selling for like $1,000.
Yeah.
And you can literally download Final Fantasy VII right now on damn near any device for like $10.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why people are willing to pay $1,000 for that. And I personally, I understand that our collections get huge, and at some point it can become cumbersome. But I like looking at my collection. I physically like looking at games, being able to thumb through, see something visually, and be like, I'd like to revisit that world. Because I know that I'm far from the only person this happens to, but any time I download a game digitally and don't play it for 2 weeks, I forget it's there.
Yeah. Well, and also, like, there's that aspect where, like, game companies will come in and, like, they're like, oh, we don't own the rights to this anymore, so we're taking it off of the store, which means we're going to take it out of your library. So you just can't, you liked that game? Well, you can't play it anymore because we own the servers and it's illegal for you to start your own. You fall into, like, this weird, like, hole where, like, the experiences that you paid for are not yours.
Yeah, like I have a PlayStation 3 with PT on it that I can never get rid of.
Yes,
what if I want to play PT again? Or I don't know. I'm gonna be real. I'm sound horrible. One day I might need to buy a house, and that might be worth some money.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know. There, maybe this is the gaming equivalent of, like, Martin Scorsese going like, oh, the only way to watch movies is on, like, a projector that is using physical film to, like, project images up on a silver screen. And, like, that, and maybe we're being, like, old fogies like that, like.
Make sure to check out Becky. The explosive new horror comic is coming soon. Shay is a woman who thought she had it all. A black man to build a black family and a black life. Until the night the demon in disguise returned. Is Shay the one to finally stop Becky? Join our email list today at www.gogetbecky.com. Get exclusive behind-the-scenes content when you sign up. Once again, that's www.gogetbecky.com.
I think you bring up a good point because this extends beyond game, like digital ownership, because this has actually recently happened to me in my iTunes library. So there's a song called Slow Dance from the Adventure Time soundtrack, and it's amazing. Y'all should go listen to it. Slow Dance from Adventure Time, sung by Olivia. I forget her last name. You're amazing. You're a doll. And I don't know why, but it was, I don't know, pulled for whatever reason, and now it's not in my iCloud, it's not on my phone, it's not in my physical library on my computer, and it makes me upset. And I'm like, but why though? I just want to listen to this song. Let me listen to it.
I bought it.
Yeah, and that would be weird, unless it was something horrible, like this game depicts horribleness. The creator was like horrible child kidnapper, something. Okay, I get that. But unless, it's something that big, I'm just like, I don't want to ever have to buy anything. And like you said, just have it ripped away from me, whether that's game or nothing. And when we enter, because as sad as I am to admit, we're probably going to enter the all-time, all digital things, that's what's going to happen. And then, even hacking and stuff like that and proving it's you and factorication, we're going to hit one of those weird dystopian futures where it's like we're all chipped and, nothing belongs to us.
Wait, that escalated quickly.
Yes, I know. And then, but hey, if I can get digitized into the game world, I might be down with that.
Okay, yeah. If I can live in, like, full virtual reality or have, like, a cool, like, sexy robot body, I'm 100% down. Absolutely.
That's how they're gonna get us. Hey, you want to play this game? You gotta have this cool, sexy robot body. It's the only way it works.
Bring it on, baby.
It's like, can I leave the robot body? It's like, nah, you're there for life. Well, damn.
If you die in the game, you die for real.
I wasn't gonna say it. That's one of my favorite things to do in my respective online gaming communities that I play games with people. There's always that one moment where I'm just like, all right, guys, it's round. If you die in the game, you die in real life. And it was like, and like everyone just goes along with it, like no questions asked. Everyone's just like, ah. Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, we have a treat for y'all, especially y'all's watching live. It is International Women's Day, and normally when I record, I don't normally do these things because between recording and day of release, everything crazy happens, especially amazing news drops. But this is a rare moment where it's the day of. So me and the lovely Jack are going to talk about our favorite women in gaming, both real and fictional, because there are a lot. And Jack, I will give the floor to you to start this segment off.
All right. So I'm gonna go with one of the like unsung heroines of like video gaming. Is a mild-mannered woman named Mabel Addis.
Ooh.
Who was born in 1912 and lived until 2004. Pretty good run. Good job, Mabel. And one of her defining contributions to video games was that she created a game called the Sumerian game. And essentially, it is the first video game to feature a story, a narrative.
Really?
Yeah, and it was built as part of like an educational curriculum for students. And so the idea was basically students would play this game. It was like on an IBM 700 or something like that. Like just a monster of a machine. And they would play this game, and it essentially put them in the role of a ruler of a Sumerian city-state. And so they would make decisions, and like they had an advisor that gave them advice. It kind of like a version of Civilization mixed with Oregon Trail. And it's just like such a cool accomplishment that in like the 1970s, that she was just like, hey, like tagged by like IBM, like, hey, we want to make an educational game. Can you help us do that? And she was just like, yeah, sure. And like she became one of the first people to create narrative in video games, if not the first person.
That is amazing. Man, who thought did you think you about to get a history lesson today, people? Because you did. I did. I'm like, hold up, I need to know about this person right now. I'm all about unsung heroes because they need to be sung, obviously.
Yeah, well, like it's really neat too, because like there's this perception that like programming and technology are like a male dominated field, which is true now, but originally it was kind of different. Originally what happened was that the realm of like hardware was like men's work. So you were working on computers, that's men's work. If you're making the software, that's women's work, because the actual term computer used to be a job that people did. Like in the time before computers, like at the computers we're using right now, like women predominantly worked as computers, meaning that whenever like a scientist wanted to run calculations on like complex mathematics, they would get a bunch of women, like a room full of people, to do the math, to compute the numbers, and that tended to be women. And so that job then translated to coding software. And then over time that changed through like the 70s and 80s as like more men got into the field, and it was women got pushed out, and it, sexism, all that stuff. But now we're trying to fix it again.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start this off with I don't know if she's unsung, but I will definitely say most people probably don't know of her, and that's Gail Tilden. Who is Gail Tilden, class? Well,
who was she?
She's still alive, to my knowledge. Gail Tilden do not be dead. But she worked at Nintendo of America, and she was in their marketing department, and she was basically the main person who advertised the NES to the American market. Because if you remember, everyone thought video games were dead after the arcade scene.
Yeah.
They were untouchable. In Japan, this was not true in Japan. So we're talking about in basically the Western world. The fad was done. It was over. And she's the one who took the Famicom, turned it into the NES, graphically too, like she helped design the gray box that we all know and love, and advertised it to the American market in such a way that it was a huge success. She understood marketing and American culture so well that she was able, because originally they weren't going to release the Famicom here because they were like, oh, it's not American enough. I don't know. It didn't have an eagle and some guns on it. I don't know. I don't know. But, she took the sensibilities and was like, this is the color scheme we're going to use. This is the name we're going to call it. And fun fact, she came up with the whole slogan of Nintendo Entertainment System to differentiate it from other video games and arcades. That's why it's called that, So she was like, we're going to call it an entertainment system. And it's the Nintendo Entertainment System. And Nintendo is the place for video games. So you can credit all of that to Gail Tilden. She is the marketing genius behind all of early Nintendo's success. Of course, good games. But before people play good games, they have to be willing to buy this system. And she was the one who put that all together. She no longer works for Nintendo. She went on to do other bigger and greater things. I think she is a consultant for wine now. But yeah, she
wait, a consultant for wine?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, go ahead. So yeah, so she and it's crazy to think about because this knowledge didn't come from the understanding of video games per se, but how to market something. And she understood a dying market in a country that no longer cared for it enough to be, because people will always say that Nintendo saved the video game industry. But a case can be made, the marketing for the NES saved the video game industry. And we have to credit her with that for that. That was her success. And
that's really cool.
You can read about her story because the Japanese businessmen at the time, basically she walked in and told them, no, we're not doing that. It needs to be like this font. And of course, any Western person telling, some Japanese businessman probably won't receive a warm welcome, let alone a woman. But,
right.
And we're talking, 80s people. We all like to think civil rights happened a long time ago and that, it was all peachy keen. But that was still very much a time where you had to know your role and place for a lot of people. So that makes it even more impressive.
Absolutely.
So, put on your big girl skirt and get it done. So that's mine.
That's a good one. We're gonna have more, right?
Yes, we're taking turns.
Okay. So my next up one is definitely one that I don't think a ton of people have heard of, but I think more people should. And that seems to be kind of like a recurring factor for some weird reason. A lot of women's names just people don't really remember. But there is a legendary adventure game designer by the name of Muriel Tremé or Tramis. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. She's French or from the French Caribbean, or Caribbean. I can't pronounce words. But Muriel essentially came from Martinique and she like grew up fascinated with video games because like this weird emerging art form, and she wound up studying engineering and going into like aerospace engineering specifically, but she like couldn't like tear herself away from video games. And so she wound up working with a French video game designer called Cocktail Vision, and essentially created like some of the first, and I think maybe even to this day, like only games focusing on like colonialism in like Latin America and like the Caribbean. So like one of her first games was a game called Mulio, M-E with a accent over it, W-I-L-O, which essentially like was about a Martinique resident coming back home and like trying to unravel like a mystery, and like essentially it dealt with like slavery and revolts and like the ghosts of colonialism. Like it's really cool. It's really cool stuff. And yeah, just kind of how like this history of like bloody gold still haunts the Caribbean to this day. And yeah, you have to essentially investigate the island to solve this mystery before a volcano erupts.
I like all of that. You know, that's one of those things you hear about, and you're like, I feel like I should have heard about this because I liked everything you just said about that. And I really, me personally, as a minority, I really especially love games that explore cultures that we normally don't see in games from people from those cultures. Because I'm not saying that people from a culture can explore a culture and do it great justice, but there's just a certain feel and look of a game when you get someone who's, you know, is tied to it from their roots. And, you know.
Yeah. Well, like she didn't stop there. She also made a game called Freedom: Rebels in the Darkness, which is essentially a strategy stealth fighting game about a rebellious black slave working on sugar plantations, inciting a revolt against the slave masters. And I think that's dope as hell, and it's really weird that I've never heard about it until I started reading up on this wonderful woman.
You know what? Boom. Ooh, 1988, before my time. All right.
And I know these are vintage games. These aren't some like these aren't like modern SJW hippy dippy games. These are OG games tackling even older issues.
That you know, I'm learning today.
It's so cool.
It is. All right, for my next one, I'm going to admit this is going to be my last real person. The rest of these awesome women in gaming will be fictional people. So just a heads up. But so I believe she's well known. She should be, at least. If she's not, then there's a lot of Halo fans out there. So if this person isn't one of your idols, I don't know what to tell you. But Kiki Wolfkill, who is, you know, currently executive producer at 343 Studios, I think has touched basically every Halo that's ever existed now. And she has been in the industry for a long time.
Yeah.
And Kiki Wolfkill's her real name, people. So that's just boss.
That is dope as hell.
Like I wish she was my boss so I could be like, excuse me, Miss Wolfkill. Like I'm sorry, that's just dope.
I would be too scared to be fired by her.
Exactly. But so besides her awesome resume of working in the Halo games and her breadth of experience, she has been a special person to me personally in my gaming career, because there was an E3 that I heard her speak. I wasn't there, but I saw the video, and she spoke so passionately about games and game designs and what that meant for her, that it was the first time. So for the longest, I've always wanted to work in games, quote unquote, and write about games. You know, tips and tricks and game trailers are pretty much my entire childhood. So I always wanted to be those people. You know, I always wanted to cover games and talk about games. I didn't know game journalist was a job, but I just knew I wanted to do that, whatever that was. But when I saw Kiki talk about game design and working in games and actually making games, and the way she talked about it and crafting worlds and all that, was the first time in my gaming journey that I realized that ultimately I want to make game stories and share those with the world. And that moment was because of her. And like, she has always had a fond place in my heart because of that.
It's awesome.
And that's it. And she helps make Halo, so that's cool. That's that. But beyond that, like, her passion came through. It was just like, those moments where you feel like someone's talking to you because there's the way they're talking about it and their passion. How they come through. Of course she wasn't. She doesn't know I exist. Sadly, not yet. She doesn't know I exist yet. But it was just like, it impacted me in the way and what I thought I want to do about games. Of course, I still want to write and create content, but ultimately, I want to do what Kiki Wolfkill does because of how she presented it. It was just amazing. So thank you for that. I appreciate that, Kiki. One day, I hope to talk with you, discuss something, and thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, I have one more real woman before we get into video game women.
All right.
And that is Roberto Williams. Like, she'll be one that you see like topping like most influential women in gaming lists. And essentially she's one of the people who like invented graphics in gaming. She's the like, and not only that, like, founder along with her husband Ken, founder of Sierra Games Online. They did like all the King's Quest games, the Space Quest games. They did Mystery House, which again, first game ever to feature like computer graphics. Which like up until that point it had all been text adventures essentially. And yeah, like, honestly, gaming would be like a much different place without like the backlog of not the backlog, but like without like the creative endeavors of like these two people, mostly Roberta. Like it's, I never hear like Ken Williams was the real brains. Like, no, it's always Roberta. And essentially like just completely turning an entire genre into their own playground for like the better part of like 20 years, when like gaming was still new. And so like some of those titles might be a bit outdated today, but you can still go back and play them and have a really, really good time. But I do recommend that you use a strategy guide, because otherwise you might be running around and accidentally lock yourself out of being able to beat the game. But on top of that, they also created like horror as a genre. Like their first game was Mystery House, which was basically a horror game in 1980. So like trying to figure out the killer, like, save yourself from a killer. And then later, like, one of their last projects was a series called Phantasmagoria, which is like a straight up horror adventure game, like with full like FMV directions and like all the bells and whistles. So incredible contributions to gaming as a whole, like just like mind-blowingly large contributions. So thank you, Roberta Williams. Without you, the game industry would be a poorer place, and we wouldn't have like Escape from Monkey Island and all that fun stuff. So yeah.
All right. So I have about 4 or 5 women fictional that I love in gaming. I'm gonna start with an old one because she, at least currently, is the best, probably will forever be the best in my opinion. She's not even a protagonist in a game, but her impact, I feel, is just how I want to word this. This is probably the greatest impact a non-playable character has ever had in a game for me to date, and probably forever will. And that is the boss from Metal Gear Solid 3. Because
Oh, yes.
She
I didn't know where you were going with this, but I agree.
She is amazing, and I'm not gonna lie, the Metal Gear Solid series isn't the best when it comes to their women characters. Not the best.
Nope.
From a design wise, not the best. I mean, I love them all, and I think they're cool. And you know, I think Quiet being mostly naked because she's photosynthetic makes sense. I mean, okay, now we just know why a sniper is mostly, but let's be real, kind of stupid. You know,
it was for the titties. It was for the titties.
Yeah, we can say it had a logical reason all we want to, but I still think Quiet is dope. But I digress. The boss, because one, she is, like her name implies, undeniably, unquestionably the boss. You know, and you know, everyone fears her. A man can literally shoot lightning out her hands and will not sass this woman. Her presence is felt whenever she enters a room. Her presence is felt, you know, and a lot of games will take when women are strong or undefeatable. You know, a common trope is either A, they're ugly, which I don't know, shame on you people that I don't get that. Or B, you know, they're like, there's some defect, if you will, to justify them being strong. Like, oh, she must be really butch or ugly or, you know, this or that. No, the boss still had all her feminine traits intact. Still a boss. And just the sacrifice this woman gave. She gave up her child for her beliefs, her country, her journey, her struggle. It was just, you know, her relationship with, you know, Jack, the original Snake, you know, aka Big Boss. Her relationships with what she had to do in a game, and it was just like, you know, usually in stories, you know, people like to make women's stories about sacrifice. And it's usually like, oh, that sacrificed their career or being a mother. And definitely the boss has aspects of that too. But this woman sacrificed everything that a person, regardless of who they are, could sacrifice for a cause. Undeniably just did that. And even in her last moments on this earth against her protege, she still held true. She did not falter. She did not shake quiver. It's just, my God, this woman, I don't even see her as like, oh, you know, you're putting her as like your best woman. No, she is like the best character in genre ever. Like, she stands above the rest, not only in her game series, but in just games, period. And like, just her death, it's weird because when you kill her in the game, it doesn't, before you even know the full story, it doesn't feel good because you just know the prestige of someone like this. Like, the boss, everybody, she's just amazing. Like that's Kojima's best work, hands down. I don't know if he can ever write anything better than that character, because that woman, my God. Like
that game is so good.
Like, it is. And it's just like, even like her ending speech when she's just like the part that breaks me where she was just like, man, you know, Jack, there is no countries. I'm just a man. You're just a woman. And, you know, these are just the facts of life. And, you know, we all have to do the things we do. And you just, man. And you know, she's just like I said, a badass. Like, you know, when you fight her, she breaks your arm like 12 times over the course of the battle because she just can do that like that. But anyway, the boss. I love you.
You definitely took one of my picks, but that's okay. I think you went off in a way that I would not have been able to. So I appreciate you saying better than what I could have. I'm gonna go with my next pick, which is Jack from Mass Effect 2.
Oh, okay.
Jack is a fascinating character to me. Someone who has been through incredible amounts of trauma, has been like implied that she was sexually abused, implied that well, not implied, but she's been like a criminal, been literally put in the highest security prison in the galaxy, um, and still manages to escape, still manages to break free via a daring escape plan, and ultimately, despite all of like her power, is someone who is extremely vulnerable, extremely fragile, still in the process of recovering, still in the process of figuring out who she is outside of like abuse. And I find it really inspiring that over the course of 2 games, she's able to kind of, I mean, depending on certain decisions, she either dies or is able to kind of put her life together and care about something. And I think that, I don't know, there's something really admirable about that. Like, I don't think you often see characters in games that are just like completely fucked up. Like, you know, when completely messed up. Like you'll see like characters who are like mutilated, or like characters who are just like, yes, I had a sad backstory. But like Jack sells it on a level with the vulnerability of it as more and more of her story comes out. And I think that is part of what's so important about her character. And then by the time the 3rd game rolls around, if you've made certain decisions, she's someone who's actually able to be responsible, is actually able to be like a really powerful force for good. And I think that's like, I don't know, there's something compelling about that to me. And also, that's literally why I'm named Jack. So, hey.
You know, that actually ties into my second pick, actually. So that's interesting. Because what I find, so personally, so games deal a lot of times with people who, you know, suffer from mental disorder, the main one being depression. And, you know, I'm just going to say depression is real, people. But for the longest time, like, I've always had a hard time understanding depression, me personally, because, you know, I was always taught, like, you know, the try and true way, like, you know, you just got to suck it up and deal with it. And you don't always have to just suck it up and deal with it, and not everyone is capable of doing that. And that was one of those things I only understood on paper. And I, you know, I just mentally knew that, like, to say anything otherwise would be damning. You know, right. Yes, people, you cannot fully understand something and just understand you don't understand and leave it at that. It is very possible. I recommend some of y'all try that. And so games always dealt with this, like, you know, for the longest time, like even back in the 8-bit era. But I think there's one game that does it the best. And, you know, we have amazing games like Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, that deals with schizophrenia and that. But I think the game that finally truly nailed it was Celeste.
Ooh.
And, you know, our main protagonist, Madeline, her name is not Celeste, Celeste is the name of the mountain. Madeline deals with, you know, depression, failure, you know, failing her family, failing herself or her hopes and aspirations and goals, failing in her relationship with whoever that person was. I don't think the game ever truly tells us. And, you know, in battling her depression, she decides, you know what, I'm going to go climb this impossible mountain where you find yourself. And, you know, due to musical cues, you know, certain gibberish that you can't really understand, her battling a little shadow version of herself, and the literal soul-crushing difficulty of the game. All these combined in a way that really made me truly connect with what she was going through in a way no other game or story has ever done. And like you said about your character, Jack, that most characters dealing with depression either are like super strong or they're either so messed up it's not real, or they're so perfect in a way that they overcome it. But Madeline is really vulnerable most of the time. Just really vulnerable, aware of her shortcomings, her brokenness, and the way she deals with it. You know, she doesn't truly overcome them all, but the way she deals with it is so human. Mm-hmm. You know, I feel like most stories and games don't forget that aspect of it, that part of this journey is very human and not like, I've conquered the mountain, I've beat the beast, I win, problem over, yay, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You do a little dance. It's not about that. And it's just, you know, there's a point of the game where it's like, it's where it gets really hard and where she verbally says like, I don't know if I can do this no more, but I just want to finish this. And it's like, that really pushed me through. Like that game impacted me way, and Madeline herself and her story and her self-dialogue and her self-reflection, discovery, especially dealing with the evil her, that really made me want to finish the game solely for her. Like, I sympathize with her on such a fundamental level that, like, I mean, I don't want to say I felt her pain, but I felt her pain, for lack of a better way of describing it.
Mm-hmm.
That it was just like, man, you know, this stuff ain't easy.
Yeah.
And it's just hard. And like watching her deal with it and her turmoil was just like, it affected me emotionally. Because usually when I say emotional game, I mean like, oh, it made me happy, it made me sad, it made me cry. But this affected me emotionally in a way where, you know, it was hurt that I wasn't sure I was going to be able to fix by the end of the game for her or myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that just says leaps and bounds for her as a character in the game overall.
Yeah, like honestly, Celeste is like top tier game, and on top of that, she's also trans. So, like,
you know, I saw something, a posting about that, but I didn't know if that was like a fan theory or we actually had that confirmed.
No, it's pretty confirmed.
Oh,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, like, and that also like provides like an additional like context for like her depression and her struggles too, right? Like, it's all kind of wrapped up together. So for mine, I'm gonna go with Clementine from The Walking Dead. Clem is a character who kind of took a back seat during the first game. Like, she was just kind of like a MacGuffin that cried. But like in the second game, she takes on like a much more like protagonist role, right? Like she becomes like this character who is having to make decisions about who to trust, who not to trust, and those decisions often have ramifications. Usually bad ones, because the world she lives in is dark and full of terrors and horrible people, and it's really bad. But there's just something like enduring about her, something that is strong, something that is brave, something that is really admirable in her character, and the way that she deals with it, not as like an adult would, but as a child would, like trying to figure out these problems through like the limited means that a child has at their disposal. And I think that is really, really interesting, because I think a lot of like games tend to show kids as like helpless MacGuffins, you know, like the first game did. The first game mostly being about Lee. But Clementine comes into her own as a character slowly, and we get to see her grow up over the series. And I think that it's really just really interesting to see her from the second game onward, just see her grow up, make decisions, be her own person fully. And it's really like I've never seen any other game series really do something like that, right? With like a central child character over like growing up over time. I can't think of any other time I've seen that happen. And the way that she's able to do that without sacrificing anything that makes her, you know, a child, though some of those things might be taken from her before her time. And the way that she's able to do it as like, you know, a woman in training, I guess. Like, a lot of the situations that she finds herself in, she is made aware of the fact that she is like a girl, and not like a boy of a similar age, you know? And I think that that's just an interesting element of that entire series, that kind of like underlying tension and I guess like traumatic undercurrent, I guess. It's just like being a woman in a society where everything's fallen apart, and how additionally terrifying that can be.
That's interesting. I think you're right because usually if we do get that, we'll get it like the Last of Us style where character's a child, next game or whatever they're adult. We'll get like a super flash forward. But with Clem, we really got to see her literally grow up over the series. It wasn't like, okay, she's 10, now she's 22, now she's an old woman. It's like, no, she's 10, 12, 16. Early,
Yep.
you get to see those developmental stages, and like you say, she also faces the world, as a woman. It's not like, in Ellie's case, it's not like she grows up and she's a badass. She's a badass. Like no disrespect against Ellie. Shout out to Ellie.
Yeah.
I've never been so driven by revenge until I played that game. Normally, you regret bashing people's face ins, but nah, not this time. We're not talking about that. All right, so for I got two more picks, but
Okay.
it's multiple women like from the same series, so I'm gonna group them together. But going off what you said, this is several women, and this is interesting because I've never seen a game before make multiple great women characters that weren't there to fit an archetype. And the only archetype I can say these women fit is they're just from around the world. So it's like, yay, the archetype that multiple people from different races and backgrounds exist. The best archetype you should always try to hit, I guess, But, okay, think about this game has a roster. Think about most games with a roster. You got the sexy, the geek, the nerd geek that's also sexy. And then you got like the sexy, like, I don't know, slut for lack of a better term. Because, sorry, people.
Big titty lady.
Yeah. Then you got like attractive bruiser. The
himbo.
Yeah. Okay. Think about what's the new Royal Battlestars PlayStation game? Crap. What's it called?
I have no idea.
Crap. Hold on. The one that just came out for PlayStation 5, Royal Battle.
Rumble. I don't know.
It's the one where you drive the cars and you jump off the game. You jump off the car. Whatever. That game fits all those bad archetypes. But Apex Legends, all the women in that game, because I think they're all amazing. Like, I've never seen a game with a roster of ladies, plural, all great, all not fitting like, we got Horizon, school Scottish scientist lady. I love her accent. Or is she Irish?
I love her.
She's Scottish, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We got Lifeline. We got the Healer. We got Bangalore Professional Soldier. Oh, man, we got just Rampart. First off, shout out for Indian culture, mechanic, funny as hell. Even Loba, who is the quintessential sexy character, is still rocking full of personality. And, just Watson.
Those thighs. I'm sorry. Those thighs.
Yeah. It's like,
bless you.
Guess what?
Bless you, creative team. Bless you, devs.
And Loba is what 90% covered? What? Crazy, right? She's covered and still like, full of sex appeal intended. They all do. We got Watson, engineer, and they're all boss ladies, professional soldier, engineer, super mechanic, master techno thief, all charm and personality. Like, it's weird. And it's horrible, Jack, to say this. It's weird to have a roster of ladies that's all good. Like,
and that are all wearing clothes.
Oh, they are all wearing clothes. Oh,
Rafe, like, the bar is so low, isn't it?
Yeah, like, it really is. And they're all top-notch fighters. Like, they're all respected. And even the worst quote unquote one in Loba is still better than, infinitely her counterparts from any games with a roster. Like, okay, everyone loves Overwatch, and Overwatch is a good game, but like even Overwatch falls into these traps with their women characters quite easily. I mean, that's all I'm gonna say. I know everyone loves Overwatch. You know, I'm not gonna step on any toes. Don't come at me, people. Not talking bad about your favorite game, but you know, kudos to Respawn. You know, just they're all great, and it's just like, you know, it's weird. Like you said, this shouldn't be the first problem, maybe not the first, but definitely the only game I could think of with a woman roster that's all just like, yeah, look, it's possible for them to be sexy, smart, clothed, personality filled, driven. I'm just, again, I'm amazed, and I shouldn't be amazed because clearly it's not that hard to do if you want to do it. But
just has to make it past marketing, I guess.
Yeah, and it's like, and what, racially diverse too? What?
Yeah, they're not all lily white. What?
No, not one of them is the bimbo character. What, I think at least half the roster got PhDs in something.
Yeah, I feel like if you approached any of those women without extreme caution and respect, they would just slap the piss out of you.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
it's insane to think about just how good that roster is. Like I said, I couldn't just pick one of them. Lifeline was my main, but recently Bangalore has become my main. So, you know, I guess I'll say shout out to you, Bangalore. And Woman Crush, I'm sorry, Rampart is my woman crush. I don't know why.
It's okay.
It's, you know, something with that English accent.
All of those crushes are valid.
Just, you know, and, you know, solely based off of voice, Horizon, close second. Close second. Just her little quips and things as we're playing along the game. I'm just like, ooh, you're just, you're funny. I like you. All right.
Also, yeah. Okay, I got one more.
Okay.
Red from Transistor.
Oh, didn't see that one coming.
I love Transistor. I think it's one of the more underrated Supergiant games. I love the way its systems work to kind of like slowly unravel the different storylines going on in the background. And I love it as like this Shakespearean tale of revenge. Just like it's very rare that we get to see in video games a woman that's just like totally hell-bent on murdering everybody. And that's basically the story of Transistor. Like essentially, like, she's given a chance to escape everything at the very beginning of the game, to just like keep on going, never look back. You don't need to go back to this city. But she's just so pissed off over the death of her boyfriend that she goes back to burn that motherfucker to the ground. To burn that city to the ground.
It's okay. We've already lost funding on YouTube, Jack.
I'm sorry.
Demonetized.
And so I just love the purity in that, and that like it's just a journey from like start to finish of like this woman who has been wronged by society in a number of different ways. They've stolen her talent, her joys. They took away the one connection that she still loved, and just saying, to hell with it. I'm going down. I'm taking all y'all with me. And doing it in a way where she's silent the entire game. Like, I know a lot of people like gave it flack when it came out, like, oh, there's a man talking for her. But like, she doesn't need to talk all that much to convey what her story is, because what her story is what she's doing throughout the game, which is killing everybody. Like, literally everyone. And it's just really refreshing to me to see like female characters in games, women in games, who are allowed to have that kind of deep and abiding rage at like an unjust society. because usually that's not how it goes, you know. Usually the women are like your emotional support animal, you know, like um and I just like how pure Transistor is to that point, and um I don't know, it stands out as very unique to me in that regard.
Right on. I've never actually looked at that game that way, so I appreciate that fresh perspective.
Yeah.
All right, so people, I'm gonna end this with two Pokemon characters. Yeah, we're gonna get there eventually. So first and foremost, because I like strong females. Shout out to my mother for raising me. I always tell people, I'm like, whoever consider females weak has never been raised by like a single mother. That's all I have to say on that. But so first is Cynthia, the champion of the 4th generation, the Sinnoh region. We're just getting its remake finally, so yay to everyone. So if you ask any Pokemon fan of the video game series, who is the best champion, Cynthia is either first or second, hands down. She is one of the strongest champions to ever be the Pokemon champion. Like, she is poised. She has a damn near unstoppable Garchomp. She is one of the few champions that has beaten me ever in the game, because Pokemon games notoriously aren't that hard. And like, man,
also impeccable fashion.
Oh yes, yes. Where do those breezes come from every time she enters the room? I do not know. I remember in Black and White, after you beat the main game, you eventually get to explore like the other half of the region, and you find Cynthia and her seaside getaway village. And I didn't know at the time, before I walked into this random house in this village, that Cynthia would be in there and should we request a battle. And I'm like, oh, sure, cool. Hey, look at Cynthia from Sinnoh. Yeah, you're a beast. Let's battle. Floored me, just like beat me into the ground. And I was like, oh, damn, not going back in there until I get my stuff together. And so, yeah, shout out to Cynthia, one of the strongest Pokemon trainers still to this day in the universe. I wonder what happened if she battled Leon. Second / shout out to Nessa. One, yeah, she is a beautiful black queen. So yes, go her. I remember her reveal trailer. We all went crazy. Shout out to her because she is also the top model in the region and one of the top models in the world. And they explored this a little in the game, but in the Pokemon Sword and Shield miniseries on YouTube, they dive into it. So one of the things I love about Nessa, besides being, a minority and a symbol of beauty, which is rare in games, one of her things is like, why can't I be gorgeous and strong? And that's one of the things why she's a water Pokemon trainer, because water Pokemon are also beautiful creatures and strong. And in the miniseries on the episode about Nessa, they delve into that because her modeling career is interfering with her Pokemon trainer career. And she's trying to balance those things, and she comes to the crossroad. Will I have to give up one for the other? And she doesn't want to. And ultimately, she doesn't, she's able to prevail at both, being, one of the gym leaders of the region and top model. And, that was the theme of it, just because it's like, why do beauty and strength have to be two separate things? They don't have to be. And that's her as a character, as because in the Galar region, to be a gym leader, you just don't like the other regions where you have to just apply to have a gym. You have one. You have to consistently be a top trainer in the region to consistently hold on to the moniker of gym leader. Like, if you lose too many times in the Galar region as a gym leader in exhibition matches, you will lose your standing as a gym leader. And so, and ultimately, I just think that's beautiful because, granted, in subtle ways, Pokemon isn't really story driven, but if I had a daughter and if she, God willing, loved Pokemon, I'd be like, you're Nessa, baby. You're beautiful and strong. Can't no one tell you nothing in this world. Look good, kick ass, do all that good stuff, be pretty, do what you want. And so shout out to Cynthia and Nessa. Y'all the greatest.
Agreed.
But that's it for this week, people. We went a little long, but hey, we had some great topics, great guests. Jack, I want to thank you for being on the show with me, and also thank you for live streaming the show for the first time. But where can people follow you, keep up with you, see what you're doing, and support you?
People can follow me over on twitch.tv/riverboatjack, where I talk about games, sometimes I play games, and sometimes I talk about politics and stuff. So stop by if you're interested in any of those things. And you can follow me over on Twitter @riverboatjack. So go do that.
Yeah. Show her some love. And, if you want to show me some love, there is a Patreon, Full Circle Productions. You can find it on all the social medias and at Full Circle Podcasts on the Twitter. But, shout out to my Patreons, Gabriel Garcia, Baker Rice, Ryan Fraser. And we have a new Patreon, Rachel Coleman. So, yeah, welcome to the family. Thank you. I appreciate that. And, people, I just want to let you know, you don't have to give me money because you can like, share, and subscribe for free 99.
What?
I know, crazy, right? You can support content for free. Yes, you can. Please support Jack's content as well. But, that's it for this week. For all things me, you can follow me at Harmon Jr. on all your favorite social media. But as always, everyone, have a great week and be blessed.